to introduce Dr. Yelena today. Dear friends, Dr. Yelena Prokhorova, she's a doctorate and associate professor. She's also the deputy head of management department at Kyiv National Economic University, Ukraine. She's the member of Faculty Management Council. She's also the member of University Scientific and Methodical Council. Her expert areas are business strategy, change management, and strategic management, both at the UG level and the post-graduation level. She has also been credited to develop the distance course for the strategic management in Ukrainian language. Her scientific interest lies in managing the process of strategy implementation, organizational culture development. She has also participated in consulting projects to improve the efficiency of enterprises, transferring them to self-sufficiency. She has also prepared the methodical recommendations and held the training for the top government officials at the National Agency of Ukraine for Civil Services. She is also at the editorial board of many prestigious journals, very reputed journals, research journals. With this, we welcome you, Dr. Yelena. Thank you very much for your agreeing to deliver this session on strategic management today. Over to you, Dr. Yelena.
Thank you very much, Dr. Raghvendra, for your introduction. Dear students, dear colleagues, let me start. Do you see my screen?
Yes, ma'am, we can see.
Yes, great. So today's topic is about strategic change management, and more deeply we will discuss how to manage resistance to change, which always assists any strategic change.
Yelena, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but you can put it if it is possible, and we are not facing the same problem as we faced in the past. You can put it on the slideshow mode.
Yes.
Let's see if the slides are changing. So you can put it on the slideshow.
I didn't change yet. Let me try. Do you see the second slide?
It's the first slide. Content? It is the first slide. Yeah.
Yes, I'll try to change. I'm sorry, just a moment.
Now we are on the second slide. Okay.
Yes.
So can we do it on the slide mode, or do we want to continue like this only? Okay. Okay, a little better. Then let us go like this. Let us go like this only. Okay.
Yes, thank you very much. So the content is the next. First of all, we'll discuss briefly the concept of change management, strategic change management, then main stages of change process. The main part of today's meeting is about individual and group reasons of resistance to change. And finally, the main approach is how to manage resistance to change. So before we start, I propose you to discuss about definition. What is change? Not change in business, in organization, but generally speaking, what is change? How could you define what is change? Please, you may tell me or type in the chat. What is change? What is it associated with?
Students, would be great if you talk to the resource person, right? You can unmute yourself and you can share your views on whatever she wants to communicate with
you. So please, Sandeep.
Yes, ma'am. Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening.
My name is Sandeep. So, ma'am, I'd like to say change is something what I understand is growth or going through a development.
Yes, development. Yes, development of something. Yes, great. Thank you. Yes, another points of view, please. Kalpana.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon.
Ma'am, I think change is any difference in the present and the past situation or your state. It may not be growth, it may not be decline, but change is simply, I think, the difference.
Yes, yes, difference. Yes, thank you very much. Yes, difference between two positions, two situations. Yes, thank you. So let me see in the chart. Something which is not constant can be shape, size, thoughts, ideas. Thank you very much. Learning something according to situation. Yes, great. Thank you very much. So you know that everything is changes from moment to moment. There are a lot of philosophers who try to define what is change. Sandeep, do you have an additional point of view? Sandeep, you told the previous time. Yes, thank you very much for your points of view. It's all is right. Yes, change is difference between two situations. Very often when I ask my students to give definition of change, they answer, for example, it is situation when something is changing. But what is change in fact? Yes, of course, it is not a simple definition. What is change? Today, we will discuss strategic change and very simple definition. Strategic change, any change in organization which caused by strategy implementation. When we choose new strategy, before we have to implement it, we have to realize what changes will be implemented in our organization in order to implement the new strategy. Some changes may be very deep, some changes may be more light, may be more simple. First of all, I propose you this picture, this model illustrating stages of change process proposed, developed by Levin. He is very interesting person. He is not a manager or an economist. He is a doctor, psychologist, and he developed this model in 1950s for his patients, for psychological consulting. But you know, organizations consist from people, and each employee in organization and organization as a whole may be discussed as a human person. So 3 stages of change process. First stage is unfreeze. What is the main idea? You have to unfreeze your employees' minds. Employees have to realize that necessary for your organization. If we know change or implement changes, maybe our organization will not have any future. So the first stage, you have to unfreeze the mind, and all employees have to realize that changes are necessary for our success or even for well-being of organization, for its existence. The second stage is change itself, change process. When we implement change, when we go from point A to point B, which is our strategic goal. The main problem for managers at this stage of change process is managing resistance to change. Why resistance to change occur? There are a lot of reasons, but the main is organization consists of people. People as living beings, as human beings, naturally always resist any changes. Why? Because as living organisms, they tend for stability, for saving their status quo. And every change may be dangerous for this stability situation. So employees may realize that changes are necessary for their organization, but at the same time, from their inside, they may resist changes. And the main task for managers is to manage this resistance to change. And the third stage of change process is refreeze. When we changed something in our organization, when we achieved our strategic goal, we have to make some order in our organization to fix all new situations, new structure, new culture, routines in organizations, in organization processes, and so on. It is a classification of change process by psychologist Kurt Levin. Another well-known classification of stages of change process proposed by Guillard and Kelly. Their book was published at the end of 1990s, and it was a really business bestseller. They compared organization with the human organism. It is not the new idea. They only developed this attitude for organization, comparing it with human beings. But they used the idea of chromosomes in human organisms. Do you remember how many chromosomes are in human organism? Yes, 23. Yes, great. Thank you. 23 pairs or 46. Thank you very much. But they didn't identify 23 or 46 chromosomes. They identified only 12 chromosomes in human organism and compared them with some systems in the organization. At this table, you may see these organs or chromosomes, which are similar for some structures and processes in organization. You may see that their stages of change process are very close, very similar to those proposed by Kurt Levin. Reframing, it is the same as refreeze. And as I told you, reframing or refreeze, it is about changing your mind, changing ideas. So you may see that it is about changes in mental energy, feel goals, and feel commitment. Then the second stage proposed by Kurt Levin, the change process itself, is divided into two stages. Firstly, restructuring and then revitalizing. Restructuring, if it is about structure, it is associated with skeleton, muscular system, and cardiovascular system. And what is very interesting for us as an economist, economic model is the same as cardiovascular system in human organism. And revitalizing stage, the next stage of change implementation process, it is about heart, nervous system and reproductive system. Why reproductive system? When we change our organization, new businesses, spin-offs may occur. So it is about reproductive system. And the final stage of change process, renewing or refreeze, when we have to make order in a new situation, when all changes are implemented. So it is the feeling of gratitude, self-actualization, the feeling of unity. Now let us discuss more deeply about reasons of resistance to change. These reasons may be individual from the point of view of each person or each employee in organization. Also, these reasons may be group or collective, which is characteristic of group or collective resistance to change in organization. In fact, there may be a lot of reasons of individual resistance to change. In this list, you may find only few possible reasons. Why people, individuals, may resist to changes, in this case, for changes in their organization. Because the fear of loss of status or power or job security in the organization. It is the fear of the unknown, the fear of failure, breaking established work groups or working relations, working communications, maybe fear of negative impact on their income, and a lot of others. Now I ask you to think, to recall what were your personal situations, your personal experience, what were your personal reasons of individual resistance to change. Please tell me or type in chat your personal experience, personal, individual reasons, resistance to change. You're welcome. Yes. Eniale? Please, please. Your turn.
Anjali, please go ahead.
I'm audible, ma'am?
Yes, hello.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, change is in my life, ma'am. When I am in 10th standard, I am ma'am. I am poor in studies at that time, and people are like kidding me at that time. That's why this is the main cause, ma'am, in my life. First cause to change, ma'am.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and why did you resist? What is the reason of your resistance to change?
Ma'am, people are kidding just when I am poor in studies, ma'am. That's why it's a main reason to ma'am change.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. Please, any other examples? Why you personally, please type or tell me why you personally resist any changes in your life, in your study, in your employment, work, any situations. Do not recall now. Yes, thank you. Yes. Varsha, you please.
Ma'am, because I got fired in my job once, and I also wanted to prove myself, that kind of thing.
Yes, yes. Thank you. Thank you very much. Yes, let me see the chart. What are possible reasons? We have to leave our comfort zone for adopting changes. Yes, great. Thank you very much for this answer. And another, comma, acquaintance with an elder situation, but unacceptance for new conditions. Yes, yes, it's possible. Thank you very much. Gautam, please.
Yes, ma'am. Good evening. Am I audible?
Good evening.
Because we want to explore new things in our life. So that is why we go for change. We are bored with that mundane routine that we have in our life. So change is necessary. So that's why I think that we go for change in our jobs, in our life, and everywhere.
Yes, yes, new things. As usual, people do not like new things, generally speaking. Yes, thank you very much. Kalpana, please.
Yes, ma'am, it's Kalpana.
Oh, I'm
And
sorry.
that's totally fine. I think, ma'am, it's a very human nature that we accept the changes that are in our favor and which are not in our favor. And same has happened with me as well. Very accepting when the situation is in my favor, and not so when the situation is not in my favor. It so happened in my school days that the result was totally not expected, and it did not come in my favor. So I went ahead, fought with the authorities that this is not the results I was expecting. So yes, I did not accept it and did not get adapted to it. But there have been many situations where the things were in my favor or was a little more accepting towards it. So these are situations I've faced.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes. Ashish Kumar, if I'm not
Good
wrong,
evening, ma'am.
please. Yes, hello.
Ma'am, I was very hesitant when I was in school because my academics were not so good. So my resistance to change is that I am not very much good in studies. So right now I am also not that much good, but I remove this hesitation and fear from speaking and taking participation.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you for your example. So let me see the chart. Fear of unknown, unpreparedness. Yes, thank you very much. Yes, I agree with you. As the next reason, get opportunity to achieve something, we have to change. Yes, it is necessary, but it is not negative situation, it is positive situation. Yes, we understand that if we have to get some opportunity, yes, we have to change. Yes, thank you very much for your participation. And now let's go to the next point, to the next reason. It may be individual resistance to change, but at the same time, it is much more complicated situation with group or collective resistance to change, because each person, each employee in organization may resist to change personally and silently. But when, for example, all employees in department or in the whole organization resist to change, it is more complicated situation, and it is a great task for managers to manage this resistance group, collective, organizational resistance to change. Collective resistance, reasons of group resistance to change may be the same as individual reasons, but additionally, you may find reasons which you see at this list. Loss of stability, control, routines, lack of understanding the essence of changes in organization, inertia from the groups, organizational structure, bureaucratic organizational structure may be the factor which limits any changes, and also it may be the reason of resistance to change, threat to specialization, and more other. You may think and maybe recall from your experience what may be reasons of group resistance to change, when not only you as individual, one person resists, but the group of students or employees resist to some situation for some change. And the task for managers, it is in fact managerial work to manage as individual, so group, collective resistance to change. And we will discuss some situations, some methods which are recommended to manage resistance to change. And this exercise, I propose you to think about this situation after our lecture. What is it about? If you are managers, you have to manage people. But in order to manage people, first of all, you have to realize how to manage yourself. If you have to manage resistance to change from your employees, you have to realize how you manage yourself, how you try to change yourself. What is this exercise about? As usual, when we do not achieve our goals, when something going wrong, our first reaction, as usual, is emotional. We are unhappy, and we try to find what is the reason of this situation. Very often, the first reason about which we think it is not ourselves. We think that some people may not help us in some situation or some in other cases. So we may find who is wrong and why this situation is not successful for ourselves. Then sometime later, we try to think not emotionally, but we try to realize, to analyze situation. What were the reasons of this unsuccessful, unhappy situation for me, for us? And as usual, in order to improve situation, we have to think and we have to decide what to do in order to achieve our unachieved goal. And as usual, we have to change our behavior, not change all in our life, but we have to change behavior in order to achieve our goal. But sometimes, in some cases, we have to redesign our goals, to maybe to choose another goal and try to do all our best to achieve the next more important maybe goal. So this exercise is very useful in order to analyze our personal reactions to changes and our personal attitude, how to manage situation in order to change it for the better. After this point, when we realize how to manage ourselves, it's a better idea to realize how to manage people, how to manage employees. And here you may see well-known methodology developed by Igor Ensov about methods how to manage resistance to change. Ensov proposed 4 main methods how to manage resistance to change. The first is coercive. This is paradoxical situation. From one point of view, it is a method of managing resistance to change. But you may see that one of disadvantages of this method, managing resistance to change, is high resistance from the side of employees. But in some situations, when you are limited in time and you have no any other instruments how to achieve your goal and implement some changes, this method may be successful and may be recommended I'm sorry, to use. Another second adoptive method, it is opposite to coercive. The main advantage of this method is low resistance to change, but main disadvantage, it is slow. So when we have enough time, in order not to be coercive, but we have enough time to communicate with employees, to explain them what we are doing, what are the reasons, what are the proposed results of our actions. So we may use this adaptive method, managing resistance to change. Third method, crisis. From one point of view, it is a very useful and very effective method how to manage resistance to change. But from another point of view, Igor Ensov says that it is very dangerous to use this method by some managers. Why? Some managers which have great experience of successful using crisis method, managing resistance to change, they are very interested to use this method again and again when it is not real crisis in the organization, because due to this crisis method, employees are very enthusiastic and may implement, may make a lot of work without any resistance to change. But you know, it is well-known situation when you will cry crisis, crisis, crisis may come to your organization. So it is very effective potentially, but it is a great danger to use it many times, more times that it is really necessary for your organization. And the last well-known method, managing resistance to change, managed resistance or accordion method. Why this name? In fact, it is a combination of all 3 previous methods managing resistance to change. When you have enough time, you may use communication, explanation, meetings, agreements, and so on with your employees. When time is limited, you may to shrink your instrument and use, for example, coercive or crisis method, managing resistance to change. From one point of view, it is a very useful instrument, managed resistance to change, but from managerial point of view, it is a complex method, and it is a great task for managers to use this method. But from another point of view, in reality, it is the essence of managerial work, to manage people, to manage resistance to change, and so on. And next well-known method managing resistance to change methods, developed by Kotter and Schlesinger. They published a well-known article in Harvard Business Review about managing resistance to change. This table is taken from this article. You may see that all 6 approaches which are proposed in order to manage resistance to change, in fact, they all are about communication with employees. Education, communication with employees, when managers have to explain what we are doing, why it is necessary for our organization, what will be the results of these actions, and what each employee have to do in order to do this situation better. It may include involvement, facilitation, support, negotiations, even manipulation, and maybe also implicit and explicit coercion. And from this table, you may see all possible advantages, drawbacks, and situations in which this method is recommended to use. Next situation, I want to give you an example of very successful management resistance to change on the example of two South Korean banks merger. As usual, mergers and acquisitions are very dramatical part in organizational lives. And as usual, when managers, owners plan mergers and acquisitions, they calculate a great economic effect after this fact, after merger or acquisition. But according to statistics, only 1/3 of all mergers and acquisitions achieve the strategic goals and economic indicators which were predicted before this situation. What are the reasons of this situation? There are a lot of reasons. Among them, conflict of different organizational cultures, bad coordination and management of merger and acquisition process. But also a very important reason is resistance to change from the side of employee of organizations which are acquired or merged. And this example of a very successful merger of two banks, when resistance from the side of employees was maybe zero at minimum level. McKinsey quarterly made interview with one of top managers of this bank. This is the picture of this person, and I was surprised when I read this information. What was the preparation work before the merger? How many meetings were conducted by top managers of these banks before the merger? You know that South Korea, the territory of this country is not very big. It is possible to cross the country during maybe one day. And these banks had their subsidiaries all over the country. And 2 top managers during 5 weeks, they conducted meetings with employees of each department, of each subsidiary of this bank. And you may see these impressive figures. Top managers personally met nearly with half of all employees of these banks. So you may imagine if managers in your organization want to implement some deep strategic changes in order to prevent high level of resistance to change, they have to meet with people, with employees, to communicate, to explain what are the reasons, what they have to do in order to achieve their goals. And what is additionally very important, you have to explain your employees that some things have to be changed in their day-to-day work, but at the same time, some things may be unchanged in your day-to-day work. This is a very good idea to reassure employees to avoid a high level of resistance to change. Because really employees, when they understand what are the reasons, and that when they realize that some part of their work will be unchanged, it is very great information for their successful work and minimizing resistance to change. And finally, additional information, the next author's attitude to models of change. Depending on the time in which changes have to be implemented and the scope of changes, there may be identified 4 possible situations, models of change. Evolutional change, when during a long period of time, a little implementations have to be, improvements have to be implemented. It is evolutional change, which we may see in each organization, working organization. From managerial point of view, it is very simple task to manage this change, this type of change. The next situation, when during short period of time, some small improvements or changes have to be implemented. In these situations, management have to manage this situation. It is some bit more complicated situation, but in fact, in reality, it is the task of managers to manage resistance to change. And next 2 models, how to manage resistance to change, consistent and complex changes. According to this author, Lawrence Gribignac, from his experience as manager and as consultant, he knows a few examples, a few organizations in which complex changes were implemented successfully, but he emphasized that only few organizations, few examples implemented a great amount of work, a lot of working tasks in a very limited period of time. So as you can see, according to this arrow, if you are faced with the complex model of change, you have to try to make all your best in order to go from this field of this matrix to the next, to the consistent change. What is the main idea? You have to divide a big amount of work in some elements, in shorter periods, shorter amounts of work, and go step by step, implementing step by step some small working goals. And the best idea, according to the next arrow, when you have to implement a lot of work, even in the long period of time, it's better to modernize this situation in this type of change intervention by management. And next two tables illustrates some advantages and drawbacks of consistent and complex changes. What are advantages of complex change or very complicated change? High tempo, fascinating process, and great team spirit formation. It is also, of course, it is very good and necessary, but from another point of view, what is very important when you use consistent change, what is very important advantage? The ability to see clearly causation of events. When you try to implement a lot of different tasks at the same period of time, it is very hard to analyze the results, both positive and negative. What is the reason of this positive situation, and what is the reason of this negative result? Why it is important? It is important from the point of view of managing resistance to change. When you implemented some new work, some new working task, and you got good positive effect result, it is very good to explain to your employees, please look, we worked hard, but we have such a positive result. So we are on the right way, and we may go this way, implementing our planned changes in the future. And oppositely, in this table, you may see drawbacks of consistent and complex change. Very interesting drawbacks of consistent changes implementing long period of time for implementation, and the process may be boring. But from another point of view, what are drawbacks of complex model of change? Coordination and control are complicated, but it is managerial work and you have to think about this. And difficulties with accumulation of experience and knowledge, which is very important during the process of change management, changes implementation, and it is very important in order to manage resistance to change. So it is all from my side. Thank you very much for your attention. Do you have any questions? You're welcomed.
Anjali, please go ahead, unmute yourself and you can ask your question.
Yes, ma'am, I am audible. Yes,
Yeah.
ma'am, I want to know, ma'am, what are the process, ma'am, generally companies follow in change implementation, ma'am?
I'm sorry for following change implementation.
She wants to know, Dr. Yelena, what is the process generally the companies they adopt for change implementation?
What is the process? It depends on organization. It is not one methodology and one order. As usual, first of all, top managers, strategic managers, owners, they set strategic goals, adopt strategy, and then they have to develop action plan how to implement these changes step by step. And the procedure depends on the organization, on its structure, because as usual in each situation, when you have to develop some action plan, you have to identify what tasks have to be done, who are responsible person, and what has to be done. Yes. It's my answer.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Yes, thank you very much for your question. So let me read a question from the chat. My own experience when I felt resisted to change. Yes, it's possible. For example, I'm deputy head of management department in my university, and I'm responsible for course outlines, for methodology of all courses. And my responsibility is to prepare some templates of course outlines for all colleagues in my department. Last few years were a lot of changes were implemented in our university, especially in documentation. And every year, sometimes twice a year, all our instructors, professors had to change, to improve their documentation on the course outlines and so on. And you know, from the very beginning, people were responsible and did this work, made changes in their documents quickly according to the time limits. But on the second or maybe on the third year of this incremental change process, many colleagues became not so responsible person, and I have to ask them the second, the third, and so on time in order to make some improvements in their documents. Yes, I have negative experience in this case. So let me Namita, please, your question.
Yes, good evening, ma'am. How are you doing?
Good evening, thank you, fine.
Yeah, so in times of changes, change is needed every time. I know that, like everybody knows it. So with respect to change, we need to make certain decisions. But it is not always that our decisions are right. So suppose as a manager, we take a decision and it is creating a negative, or let's say that whatever we expected, it is not giving that impact, or it is becoming ineffective, our decision is becoming ineffective, then how do we retrieve it? How do we try to minimize the negative effects of our decisions made with respect to change?
Thank you very much. It's a very good question. So you ask, let me specify, you ask about managerial decision in organization or about a decision in your personal life?
In an organization.
In organization,
yeah.
Yes. When it is very complicated and hard situation for manager, if we did something and we've got negative effect, because as I showed you, the better idea is to show the best result, which is good to make your employees more enthusiastic. When you've got negative results, I think you have to analyze the situation, why we've got negative result, and you have to be honest with your employees, and you have to show this result is negative because of these reasons. But if we improve our actions, we may improve this situation. I think we have to communicate with employees, and we have to be honest in all situations, in good or bad results. Thank you very much for your question.
Yes, thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you. Tanya, your question, please.
Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening.
Ma'am, my question is basically this, that how strategic change management helps an organization with the changing of the VUCA world, like how it's affecting the VUCA world.
How it affecting what? Sorry.
Ma'am, VUCA, VUCA.
VUCA world. Yes,
Yes,
I understand. Yes, thank you. I think that strategic change management, let's go from the very beginning. Strategic management, it is about adoption of organization to the changing situation. If we are facing with VUCA world, it is about changes without limits and without endless changes. So I think that it is the main object of strategic change management to adopt to VUCA world situation. Are you satisfied?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you very much for your question. So let me read the question in the chat. Good question. Change implementation, is it part of duty of management or part of duty of employees? My answer is the duty of managers is to manage this process of change implementation, and to manage employees, and to manage resistance to change. But you know, if any changes are implemented in organization, as usual, all employees or almost all employees have to be involved in this process and have to do all their best according to their duties at the work in order to implement changes. You may find in literature such definition as agents of change in organization. So agents of change, both top managers, managers of all levels, and all employees who are involved in the process of changes implementation. If all employees are involved in change implementations, so all employees are agents of changes. Thank you very much for your question.
Very interesting topic, Dr. Yelena. You know, as you said it correctly, the first response of everyone towards change is they don't like it because it takes them out of their comfort zone. Oh, there's another question in the chat box.
Yes, I have read it. Thank you very much for this question. As usual, people do not like changes, only few changes which are very good for some individuals, maybe preferable. So how to resolve this problem? From the manager's point of view, first of all, it is communication with employees. Manager has to communicate, to explain all situations connected with changes to employees. Managers have to show, to explain, first of all, what is the reason of these changes. As usual, it has to be better for the company at all and for each employee. Secondly, manager has to explain employees that if they do not support changes and do not be involved in change process, maybe their future in this organization is not very bright, and it is unknown. So you may use the table proposed by Kotter and Schlesinger. You may use all possible methods: negotiation, agreement, involvement, manipulation in some cases, and in some cases, coercive. Sometimes it is necessary too. It is very hard work, but it is managerial work to work with people, to manage people. Yes, the next question in chat. Strategic management, how it's differ from strategic planning. There were a lot of discussions in literature about strategic management and strategic planning. Some authors argue that these are different processes, and there are a lot of publications about the death of strategic planning or even the death of strategic management. To make this comparison very simple, what is the main difference? Strategic planning, it is more close for long period planning, when you have some indicators which you have to achieve, and you plan some actions how to achieve these strategic goals or strategic indicators. Strategic management is wider comparing with strategic planning, because strategic management, maybe the main part of strategic management, it is strategic analysis, deep strategic analysis. You have to analyze all situation in the external and internal environment in order to make very good decisions, grounded decisions. This is the difference. They also differ, and this is the difference. Strategic planning, it is more about routine work, how to implement some strategy. Yes, the next question, please. Ashish.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, I want to know that one of my colleagues said that what if our changes have negative impact, then how much time or how much time we have to consider to check the changes or the negative impact, and who is responsible in the hierarchy of this management?
Yes, it is. Thank you very much for your question. It is really a very good idea. Who is responsible for this negative effect? When you're working in organization, a lot of people are involved in the process. And yes, of course, if we have a negative result effect, we have to analyze and to find what went wrong and who is the responsible person. yes, we have to identify this person, but the next step, we have to decide what to do next. First of all, is it possible to improve situation using collective group efforts, or we have to ask only this one responsible person to improve the situation? There may be different solutions of this dilemma. In some cases, when wrong actions of one responsible person are very dangerous and damaging for organization, maybe it's better to fire this person. But I think that in most organizations with healthy organizational culture, we have to decide together how to improve the situation and how to prevent this situation in the future. But if one person or few people do the same mistake next time and next time, yes, we have to think, how do we need to work with these people? But yes, of course, it is very complicated and hard managerial decision what to do with this person. Thank you for your question.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, students, if there is no question, I think that we can call for a day. Does anybody have still any question? Kalpana, please go ahead. Please go ahead.
Ma'am, I just want to ask, how do you look strategic management as? It's an art, or you look at it as a science?
Mm-hmm.
It's a way of looking at it. It may differ from person to person. So how do you look at it?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yes, art or science.
Science.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I have the short answer. So thank you very much for this question. Yes, from one point of view, strategic management, the great part of strategic management is strategic analysis. Strategic analysis, it is, yes, it has its methodology. It is a science. If we say about strategic analysis, a lot of methods of internal and external environment analysis. This part of strategic management is about science. But from another point of view, when we analyze the history of success or the failure of companies, sometimes we may find that all strategic planning, all strategies were chosen very good according to the methodology, according to the science, but something went wrong during the strategy implementation. Strategy implementation, it is 50-50. In some part, it is the science of management, but the next part, the half of this process, it is the art of managers, how to implement strategy. And you know, very often you may find the histories of success when the success was not the result only of the company efforts, but it was a result of some successful circumstances in the market, in the external environment. And you may find a lot of works about using intuition in strategic management. And some authors say that intuition, it is something about art, it is something non-material, so it is as art and something which we may not analyze and understand. But some other authors, they argue that intuition, it is very, very deep situated strategic analysis inside of the strategist, some person. And it is not so. It is. I agree that it is a science. I agree that it is an art, and I agree that sometimes it is additionally to science and to art. It is something I think additional from external environment, from the earth, from some higher forces.
Very long drawn debate whether it's a science or it's an art, isn't it? Still the debate continues.
Kalpana, what is your personal point of view on this question?
Kalpana, what is your point of view?
Sir, I think it's a mixture of, it can't be purely art, it can't be purely science. It is a mixture of both, and it has to be taken as both.
Correct.
Yes, yes,
Correct.
thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for answering this question.
Yes,
Thank
thank you.
Okay, and I don't find there's any more question. This session, I suppose, is the most discussed session. Many students have come forward to discuss and ask questions. So I think it's a very good one. So with this, let me take this opportunity to propose a formal vote of thanks for today's session. Friends, I'm very thankful to the top management of University Dehradun, our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Sir, Professor Dr. Ram Karan Singh, our Registrar, Sir, Brigadier Rajiv Sethi, Sir, and today's expert, Professor Dr. Yelena Prokhorova, for delivering such a wonderful and insightful and very interactive session. My sincere thanks to the students who have patiently listened and communicated and discussed and have taken this session to altogether different level. My thanks to IT team also for conducting wonderfully all the activities on the virtual platform nowadays. So thank you very much, Praveen. Thank you very much, Dr. Yelena, once again. Thank you, friends. Thank you, students. See you again next week, Dr. Yelena, for another session. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Ekwendra. Thanks to all students for your questions and interest.